Well, thank you all so much for agreeing to share your thoughts on inviting people to church. You may be wondering why you're here. And the short answer, simply you invite a lot of people to church. And you not only invite them to church, you also bring them to church. So we thought it was good just to sit down and just hear your thoughts on overcoming the fears of inviting people to church. So we're going to have a two-part series. Today we're going to talk about overcoming the fears of inviting people to church. And then next week, we'll look at the practical side of actually how to invite people to church. So to kick things off, we're going to have a little fun. If you guys will introduce yourselves and tell us the craziest, awkward story that you've had from inviting someone to church.
I'm Sally Nance, and I guess I really don't necessarily have an awkward story or a horrifying story or anything. I'm pretty awkward, so anytime I invite somebody, it can be awkward. But yeah, that's just me.
So my name's Will Ferguson, on staff here at Mercy Hill. I share with Sally, I don't have any awkward moments. I am probably the most awkward component in the whole situation. So yeah, I don't have any awkward moments.
My name is Izzy Friesen, and this sounds so boring, but I really don't think I have any awkward moments either. I think probably the most awkward moment is my thought process before, or I think the way I psych myself out of like, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? What are they going to say? But then usually that's, once I overcome that, it's pretty smooth sailing from there.
So what are some common fears that you have or you think people have when it comes to inviting people to church? And what would you say, how can they overcome those fears?
Sometimes people have a fear of being rejected, or how do I ask that person? Or am I supposed to ask that person? But I think just my thing is all they can say is no. And just give it a shot. And the more you do it, sometimes the easier it becomes. And a lot of times, for me personally, it's like just stopping and contemplating, going through a little in my prayer time. God, if you have somebody today that you want me to ask, just make it very specific and obvious to me. But sometimes it's just somebody will walk by and I'll just say, hey, you want to go to church? Because of the work environment that I'm in, that's kind of easy for me to do. So that may be not everybody's ability just to be able to ask people that walk by, but a lot of times it's the fear could be that they are afraid to be rejected or how they will encounter that person again once they are rejected. How would they treat you after the fact? So those are possibly some things.
Yeah, so I would say, again, with Sally, like the idea of someone saying no, right? Because the idea is like, I prepared this speech, this monologue, whatever that I'm going to say. Hopefully you're going to say yes. It's really awkward once you say no, right? Like it's awkward because you don't know, like, all right, well, and have a good one, right? Like you don't know what to say, right? So the idea of like saying no and like not having a follow-up to when someone says no.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest fear is the isolation that could come with that. I guess the people that I really usually invite to church and hope will come are the people in my major in school, and which is in the School of Theater at UNCG. And that department is really close, and I'm surrounded with them kind of 24/7. And so when I step out in faith, it's almost like, okay, if someone does say no, then I have a fear that, which is kind of an irrational fear, but this fear of like, oh, no one's going to like me anymore. I'm going to be isolated. I'm going to be all alone. But honestly, I've been blown away, I think, by God's faithfulness in that. And that has not been the case at all. And I think it's really just, the enemy trying to put that in our heads of isolation or that fear, when really God is so much more powerful than that, and usually exceeds, not only squashes the fear, but exceeds the expectation of when we step out in faith.
What would you say to encourage believers who are afraid of inviting people to church?
Probably what I would say is, I don't think it's not odd, right, that we would not invite someone to church. There's a lot of people that I know that from the culture that I'm around and the people that I'm with, a lot of them, they don't go to church because they went to church, right? Like they've had a bad church experience. So if you can love them through that, and if you can be patient with them through that, man, I think that God honors that. And I think that God can soften anyone's heart to the point where, like, man, I'll give it a shot. I don't know what it'll be like, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And that's a first step. And just be prepared for when they do make that first step. When they make that first step, it's on you to kind of like follow up with them in that moment.
Honestly, I would say this sounds really weird, but just to walk like Jesus walked. I've been so encouraged and I think blessed at my time in school about how even people will approach me about coming to church, just because of, I think, the way God has been able to use me and I guess see the way I walk with Jesus. Because as much how stereotypical it sounds, people can tell a difference, and Jesus is captivating. And when someone is living fully for Jesus, it's like, whoa, I want that. Oh, they go to church, and sometimes there's just this light bulb moment. And so I think having that boldness and stepping out and taking that step to invite people, but also not to underestimate the power of really living like Jesus did, if that makes sense.
I guess I would say too is just ask. I know it may be just a simple thing, but then it shows that you care about them and you tell them why you're asking them too. I think describing how much you love them and telling them that you love them enough to go out on a limb and ask something that we don't want to make assumptions that just because we are believers that we're like, okay, you can ask to come to church with me and I'd love to have you. But for me to go that extra mile and actually take that leap and, just go and ask, because that's what Jesus did. He opened the door. You are there knocking and they have the opportunity to open that door or not. So if we're not there for them to just even ask and say, would you like to go? And then go the extra mile and say, I'll meet you there. Would you like to do something after? Would you like to talk afterwards about it? Would you like to, because I think when you invest a little bit more than sometimes just asking to let them know that you care about what they heard. If you have any questions and things like that, that may be further along in what we're talking about. But just asking the person, I think, to come along and be a part of what you are so deeply passionate about. I think it expresses when we care that much about other people, that it shows the passion of who we love and how much we love him, that we're willing to compromise who we are and how we look and how we are received by other people. I don't care what you think about me. I care what God knows about me. And he knows that I love him enough that I'm willing to lay down whatever you think about me to give you a shot to know him more or to know him for the first time. So I think it's just important to just ask, simply somebody may be waiting for you to ask. Yeah. And so just take a leap.
Yeah. And with that too, I think you made a really awesome point of like offering to meet them there. And because I found that too, like offering to take people in my car, huge. And even to see then the first step forward of inviting them, then them coming, and then them actually getting it of like, oh my gosh, this is what I took away from the sermon. And then it becomes a conversation. Then all of a sudden we're getting dinner afterwards. And like that is what Jesus did. And so kind of what you were saying too about sacrificing how we're perceived or even like sacrificing our time. Like I found that's been a really big thing and honestly sometimes hard because I'm like, I want my Sunday afternoons, or I have homework and obviously I need to steward my homework well, but like sacrificing that and, paying for someone's dinner or, spending the gas money to take all of us or whatever that may be so that they feel that love that is Jesus. Like, I think to not discount the small things really make a huge difference when inviting people. So yeah, I loved what you said.
Well, thank you guys so much. Fear can really paralyze us when it comes to inviting people to church, but, we have to realize and ask ourselves the question, is Jesus worth it? And if Jesus is worth it, then we can take that step of boldness to just invite people, understanding that, Jesus Christ is living on the inside of us and, exposing that to everyone else and not just holding on to it for ourselves. So again, thank you guys. I can't wait to hear your thoughts next week as we talk about how to invite people to church.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to like and share it so that we can continue to spread the love of Jesus everywhere. If you have any questions or advice, we would love for you to leave that in the comments below. And lastly, if you haven't already, subscribe to receive the latest sermons and content weekly. Thank you again for watching.